Mr. Hope referred to this idea as going back to the early colonial era, and I think well, I would define American exceptionalism as a belief in American uniqueness and American chosenness. That whether we are chosen by God or chosen by Providence, that we collectively have a special mission to the world, and in crudest terms, the mission is to remake the world in our own image, based on the conviction that American principles are universal principles. I teach a course on ideas in American foreign policy, and the first document we read is the great sermon that John Winthrop preaches in Boston Harbor on the deck of the Arabella, when he's talking to members of his community and explaining the purpose of the enterprise that they are about to begin, and declaring that we will be as a city upon a hill, that God has sent us here, and God is imposing particular responsibilities upon us. Whether in a religious context or in a secular context, I think that really is a major theme in our collective life, and that it spills over into foreign policy. I think it's wrong. I happen to be a believer, a Roman Catholic. There is nothing that in my religious tradition that gives any evidence that God is partial towards the United States of America as opposed to anybody else. I mean, if you look at Scripture, he's silent on that particular thing. But I think it is, I mean, when you think about it, well, when I think about it, I find it sort of silly. I have to say that were I to be talking about that when I was age 20, or 30, or 40, in an unthinking way, it kind of made sense to me. It no longer makes sense to me. And I think that it really poses a major obstacle to us pursuing policies that are grounded in reality and in common sense and an appreciation of how complex the world is, and an appreciation of how limited our wisdom is and how limited our power is.
It's a little artificial, but there is a distinction that some people make on this issue of American exceptionalism, which is that one way to think of it is that we are an example for others. We still think we're better than others and that our form of government is better, but essentially they will learn by us as an example. It becomes something quite different from Wilson on. Maybe before Wilson we didn't have the capabilities, but once we had the capabilities, not just to tell people to look at us and maybe imitate us, but if they weren't prepared to do that, we'll go and help them. We'll help them imitate us and become the democracies and so forth and so on. So it becomes a potentially much more lethal doctrine than it originally was.
And I have to say that you know, that I do continue to find very appealing the notion of America as exemplar.
Yeah.
I mean, to the extent that we can manage our own affairs so that we can manifest the goodness of liberal values broadly defined, that we can show that freedom is something more than simply going to the mall, then I think that potentially we can have make a positive, through our example, we can make a positive contribution to the well-being of others. Not because that example is going to win them over to running their countries exactly the way we run ours, but many of our values are good and are admirable. We just ought not to try to shove them down other people's throats.
Yes, sir.